Hello, I'm Karl Wells. My guest today is a co-founder of the Newfoundland film production company Take the Shot Productions. He is a producer, a screenwriter, a showrunner, and a soon-to-be published novelist. Oh, and I forgot, he's also a songwriter. Obviously, a very busy man, and we're very happy that he could take the time out of his busy schedule to be with us today. It's my pleasure to welcome Perry Chafe to the program.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Karl. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Now, I'd like to talk to you about where you grew up and what it was like, because you grew up in an outport community, and just tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I grew up in Petty Harbour, and as you know, the beautiful town.
The most photographed town in Newfoundland.
It has to be. That and Kitty Vitty has to be two of the. But I think it's one of the most gorgeous places in the world. So I grew up there in the 70s and 80s, and you can't talk about Petty Harbour without talking about the fishery, of course. So we had a town of about 1,000 people. And we had 3 fish plants running seasonally.
Really? 3?
Which is incredible, yeah.
I didn't know that.
2 on the south side and 1 on the north side. And of course, south side being Protestant, how it was settled, and the north side being Catholic. And actually, we kind of had a 4th fish plant because Bidgoods from the Goulds, they had their own thing going on, I think, further down the mouth of the harbour where they would buy cod tongues and some fish sometimes. So our life was basically, it was sort of like, we were isolated. We were 15 minutes from St. John's, but it was like being on the moon in some ways. You know, especially back then, with, no internet or connection to the outside. So our world was basically the fish plants during the summer, and even in the winter we'd play ball hockey down there. It was great. And the school and church. And it was a wonderful place to grow up. It really was, not without its issues. There was bullying and all that sort of stuff, but it's a great land of, I think it's one of the land of storytellers, the fishermen and plant workers were such great storytellers, because you sort of had to entertain yourselves back then, and the great tradition of, being Irish and English, which we talked about before, sort of added to that. So it was a wonderful place to grow up. It was just great.
Now, I know that a great many films have been made in Petty Harbour. As a matter of fact, I think they were just filming there this summer. But I go back to the days of when they were making movies like Orca in Petty Harbour and A Whale for the Killing. Did any of that have any influence on you in terms of getting you interested in going into the film business?
Oh yeah, we were almost like the little Hollywood for a while down there. Like we joked, but it was, you named 2 of them. I remember growing up, I was 8 or 9 when those movies sort of came about. Whale for the Killing. Orca was a big one because there was a huge explosion in that happened sort of across the harbour from my house, and the windows actually shook.
Yeah.
So I mean, in a small town of 1,000 people, in the 70s, that's huge news. Bringing Hollywood to us. And then there was a piece of the Terry Fox movie made there shortly after, and John and the Missus, and this is all before this new stuff started happening.
Right.
And the new stuff, which is incredible, like we shot an episode of Cot down there, which was a CBC show we did, and a Republic of Doyle episode was shot down there. So it was always, definitely watching those movies growing up and just watching those people run around, the producers and the crew run around, seeing some of the actors as a kid definitely had an impact about it. I know Alan Doyle talks about it all the time. He was actually an extra, I think, in A Whale for the Killing or Orca, where he gets the name Boy on Bridge. He's credited as Boy on Bridge on the IMDb. So yes, absolutely, it definitely did. No surprise, being such a pristine and beautiful town.
Yeah. Now, you had another career before you got into the film business. You worked at the Newfoundland Museum and then the Rooms as an event coordinator. Sir. What exactly were your responsibilities there, and what did you learn when you were in that job?
Well, that's true. So, out of university, I came very late in life to this sort of profession. So I guess the message is it's never too late to pursue your dreams. You know, I was 39 when we got Republic of Doyle, but before that, as you mentioned, I worked as at the Newfoundland Museum in the rooms as a special events coordinator.
I'm still trying to figure out what it is I want to do.
Exactly, you know, and you should never give up trying, because it changes all the time, and we change. But years ago, in fact, it's funny. I remember talking to you because you came to do some of your wonderful weather hits from there, and so basically, I set up special events which involved working with artists all the time.
Right.
So if you're an artist in the 90s or early 2000s, chances are I've reached out and you've worked with me. So musicians and dancers and painters and artisans and storytellers and lecturers, basically anyone who I could bring in to help complement the exhibitions that were going on and sort of make them come alive. And you and I had a wonderful discussion when we did the Viking exhibit in 2000, way back when. And we witnessed, I think went through an exhibit where a Viking faring boat was being constructed. So
yes, I remember that.
It was a wonderful exhibit at the Arts and Culture Center, which we toured on the West Coast. I think it was in the Pepsi Center out there as well. So being immersed and surrounded by these all these sort of artists, you know, incredible art community we have here, sort of fueled my desire to, I loved my job, but it was something sort of missing, and working with, you know, the musicians and artists and so on, sort of, you know, ignited that and made me look around a little closer, and eventually kind of stumble onto this crazy career I'm in now.
So was it Alan Hawco who reached out to you and said, hey, would you like to start a film production company with me, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so Alan was just back. He graduated National Theatre School years earlier, and he was back in St. John's, and he and I were friends through his brother, Greg Hawco, who is a wonderful musician. And now working with Come From Away. He's a percussionist in Toronto, also a music producer who did Cod in Republic of Doyle. So basically we got together and we just started talking TV shows, which was a passion of mine growing up. You had TV, basically, you know, everybody watched the same shows back then. So we just got talking about what would be cool to have set here in St. John's, Newfoundland, and we stumbled upon this idea. Alan always had a nugget of an idea about a father and son PI team based out of St. John's, not unlike the old Rockford Files or Magnum PI or Murder, She Wrote, you know, a very cool, interesting character in a super cool, interesting town who drove an interesting car, usually, so the GTO was ours. So we packaged it and worked on it, and we pitched it to the CBC, and luckily they really liked it. And I think it was Fred Fuchs at the time was with CBC, and he ordered an episode, but a half-hour episode, which is all the sort of shelf space they had. So we shot a half hour, and they looked at it and loved it, but said to us, you know, it's strange to have a half-hour mystery show. Yeah. There's not much mystery, lots of great characters. So they ordered an hour long, and our first season began from there. Right. Yeah. The rest is sort of history. And from there we built our company, Take the Shot Productions. So that's sort of the origins of Take the Shot. Started with Republic Doyle and myself and Alan creating the show, and then our partners, John Vatcher and Rob Blackie, came on board, and later Peter Blackie's brother.
Yeah. Now, I think most of us have a rough idea of what a producer is, and certainly of what a screenwriter is, but explain showrunner to me.
Yeah, that's it's sort of become more well known in recent years, because showrunners are becoming more well known. People are interested in who are the writers behind this. So a showrunner is the sort of the vision behind the show. They're the keeper of the vision. They have the creative authority to make all the decisions. So usually it's the creator of a show. Well, sometimes, but almost always it's a writer. And basically they're responsible for creating and writing the show. So in a writer's room, you know, making the scripts, making sure, you know, breaking story. And from there, they work with the crew, cast and crew, to create the show, which, you know, we go into prep and we decide where the locations are going to be, the costumes, who the actors we're going to use. So and they're also the liaison between the network and the production company. So they wear many hats, and it can be very grueling but extremely rewarding. But you get to work with all the departments, and you get to work with the networks, the directors, and and the cast, of course. So So it's sort of all encompassing, but basically they have the vision of the show.
Sounds like a lot of headaches.
But it can be. I have a lot of Tylenol.
So which shows have you been a showrunner on?
Well, it started with Republic of Doyle, and Alan and I sort of shared the duties. Alan started. He had much more experience. I just came from the rooms, as you mentioned, and here I was running a show. So we quickly got up to speed. Alan was the showrunner in the beginning, and then he and I eventually shared co-show running duties, and then in the last couple of years, while Alan was acting, he had 9 other jobs. He was acting, producing, and writing. He focused more on the floor while I sort of ran the writing room, and with the other writers. We had a wonderful team, and broke more story and kept that. The script is so important. It's sort of the engine of the show, and everything comes from there. If it's not in good shape or things.
Yeah, if you don't have a good story, you don't have a good show.
You're lost, basically. Yeah. Everywhere else, everything is so important. The post but the script is really where the engine of the show. So I started there, and then Alan and I moved on to the CBC series Cut, which was based on Lisa Moore's book, a wonderful writer.
Yeah.
And we adapted that for a season, and he and I co-showran that one as well. So, and then I went on to help Rob and Peter with their show Frontier, starring Jason Momoa, which was wonderful.
Now, how did you get Jason Momoa to come to Newfoundland to make a series?
It's crazy, hey? So it all starts with the scripts. So I worked with Rob and Peter on that one, and he just fell in love with the scripts, the story, about the fur trade and the Hudson's Bay Company, it's historical fiction. And he just read it, and we managed to get him the scripts through his agents and so on. And he just fell in love with the scripts, and it sort of took off from there. And then once he visited here, he just fell in love, and 3 seasons later, we have this wonderful creative project we did together. So, and it's the same with all of them. Russell Crowe was here for Republic of Doyle, and it all starts with the material. But once they get here, they understand the special nature of this place and the draw. That started back in the 70s and 80s in Petty Harbour. A lot of stuff was being filmed, but then it was sort of a resurgence. And we helped to build on an industry that was already here. But once they fall in love with the creative side first.
Now, I noticed, as a matter of fact, I saw it the other day. I deliberately watched it because I knew you were coming on the show, but it was a feature film that Momoa made here.
Oh, yes.
Now, were you guys involved in that?
No, but it was an opportunity, sort of indirectly, yes. We did some service production on that, I believe.
Right.
But it gave him an opportunity he saw the opportunity while he was here to shoot something. Because again, he just absolutely fell in love with the place.
Yeah, I think he may have been executive producer on that movie.
He was, and he starred in it. And so again, it's just a matter of when he got here, he looked around and said, "This is crazy. I just love this wonderful, well-kept secret." But then it's not really a well-kept secret anymore because the secret is out. It's funny. And then he was doing Aquaman shortly thereafter, just before we concluded, I believe, Frontier. And they shot actually some excerpts from Aquaman here. In fact, in Petty Harbour.
Wow.
So I always like to think Aquaman is from Petty Harbour. That's the origin story. So that's how special Petty Harbour is. Aquaman is from.
Talk about Newfoundland as a shooting location. What are the attractions of Newfoundland and Labrador to prospective filmmakers, people who know nothing about this place? What if you were pitching Newfoundland as a place to make a movie? How would you sell it?
Oh my God! Yeah, all you have to do is look out your window. We were spoiled. Like all we have to do is look out our window and we get it. But the place offers so much. If you look at our, the landscape and the seaside, we have a bit of everything. So it's just an absolutely pristine, gorgeous place. We have the coastline where you can shoot oceans and so on. We have the interior, which can look like something from Game of Thrones. So there's and it also can span all genres. So they're not just coming here to make comedies or dramas. They're coming here. There's a sci-fi show being shot here and horror has been shot here because it's you could see it with the fog and all. So it's absolutely just sort of a hidden gem that not so hidden anymore, that offers a lot. And then, of course, the other side of that is there's good incentives with tax credits and so on to come here, because the governments here have realized that there's value in bringing production companies here and offering it as as you said, a go-to site to actually shoot something. So the infrastructure is here now, and we have production companies, not just our own, but there's others that were here before us and are here now shooting as we shoot. Last year I think it was 50 million we had from the film business. I think it's going to be over 100 million this year.
It's amazing.
Incredible growth, and really costing nothing. I mean, that money wouldn't be here only for they're coming here to shoot these shows, because it just helps. It's so cost prohibitive to shoot here without sort of incentives to do so, but the infrastructure is there to do so. And then, of course, the other part of it is just look around. It has it's just an incredible place to shoot. The people are incredible. The production companies are great, first rate. What we're hearing from the actors we work with, they haven't few sets they've been on that are better than the ones they've been on here with regards to quality of the crew and the attitude and just the warm reception they receive.
Now, if you're making a movie and you need mountains, I guess you can go to the West Coast, and
we've done it. Yeah.
Depending on the angle of the camera, you can, you can do wonders.
Yeah.
But what about if you also need an urban location? I mean, can St. John's double for Boston, for example, or?
Absolutely, and some shows are shooting here. So there's two ways you can do it. You could use St. John's as a character, which Republic of Doyle did, and a lot of people watch just to see their streets.
Sure, yeah.
And the characters in the background and so on. And I think St. John's was definitely a character in Republic Doyle. But if you look at another show like Hudson and Rex, it's sort of just a background generic town. It's not, it doesn't say it's St. John's. I don't believe it does. But it's sort of a generic backdrop of a metropolitan city that's vibrant and all that sort of stuff. So we definitely can, and the way we shoot, depending on how you shoot it, we can offer that because there's parts of St. John's, as are very old and can look like old parts of Europe, if you want, and there's others that are fairly modern. So we can, and it's being done as we speak, and it will be. I think it'll continue to be done.
How difficult is it to find platforms for your product? I guess it must be getting easier with Netflix and all of these streaming platforms, or
yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, sir. No, I think you're right on the money. It's funny how the world is changing, hey? Like, especially after COVID. And now it's the world of streamers. And I just read something the other day. I think there's still 64% of the population watches via television, traditional, but
traditional, yeah.
20, there's another, large amount that is not, and it's growing exponentially all the time, and they're expecting that number to grow, to 33% streaming, so we're getting away from the traditional way of watching television. But, it's sad in some ways where we used to always gather around a television set as a family, or you watch TV. Now everybody's on their smartphones or tablets and so on. But what it does create is a number of places where you can sell content. And so as creators of content and providers of content, it opens up all sorts of interesting places like Netflix, which have, I think, over 200 million subscribers, which is
Now, was
crazy.
Netflix the original platform for Frontier?
No, the original one was Discovery Canada.
Oh, okay.
So, and a lot of times it helps to have a Canadian network or buyer attached before you take it and sell it.
I didn't discover it on Discovery. I discovered it on Netflix.
I'm glad you discovered it. It's a wonderful show.
It is, yeah.
So, and that's an example of where we had Discovery on board. It makes it sort of more appealing to take that to some other place like a Netflix, who can, where you share the cost and get, the same product that you can show and on your respective either streamer or on a network, and you'll see that a lot of times.
So if you make a deal with Netflix, are you just making a deal with Netflix Canada, or does the product air worldwide with them?
Well, it all depends on the deal you have. So with you could have Canadian rights exclusively to whatever the broadcaster was. If it was Discovery or CBC, they would own the Canadian rights for a certain amount of time, and then Netflix would get everything else outside of that for a period of time, and then eventually it's worldwide sort of rights, because again, Netflix with over 200 million subscribers, it's just all around the world. And again, it's funny how the streamers are coming on. There's literally dozens and dozens of them, but again, it just makes it so much more interesting. It opens up so many more avenues for us to actually go out. Before, in Canada, there was really only 3 or 4 places you could take your show to pitch it. But now, with this new world, it's sort of dozens and dozens and dozens of places.
Now, you're involved in an exciting project right now. As a matter of fact, you just came from the set. Tell us about this new project.
Oh yes, I've been working with Mark Critch and Project 10 and our company, Take the Shot Productions, to produce Son of a Critch. It's the Mark Critch show, and I think it's been getting a lot of publicity lately. And we're filming that now in St. John's, and it's a comedy of 13. We have 13 episodes in season 1, and it's based on Mark's Son of a Critch wonderful book that is sort of that he wrote. I think it's a bestseller. He wrote a couple of years last year, the year before.
A couple of years ago.
A couple of years ago now. I know you had him on the show. So we've been working to develop, and so taking the stories from his book and just turning it into a television show. So this it's a 12-year-old Mark growing up on the outskirts of St. John's, at the top of Kmart Road, at in a house next door to VOCM, which back in the day we were talking about earlier, there was nothing but farmland behind. That was literally the end of the world out there.
Totally, yeah, yeah.
That was it. It was great. So we have a great cast. Mark is playing. He's in it playing his dad. Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange is involved. A wonderful young actor, Malcolm is playing his pop. A wonderful young actor named Benjamin Evan Ainsworth is playing 12-year-old Mark. And he was on Netflix, The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yes.
He's going to play Pinocchio. He's the new Pinocchio in the Tom Hanks movie. So just wonderful actors. Claire Ranking is involved. And we have a set built that's just like Mark's house, which is always sort of freaks him out a little bit to walk through, memory lane. And we built a house just for Mark based on his memory of it and some photos. So we're shooting that now, and we're coming down. I think we have 10 shooting days left, but a wonderful show. It's going to air in January on CBC.
That's great. Now, I have to ask you before you go, you're a soon-to-be published novelist. Tell me about your novel.
Oh yes, so
and whether it's going to be made into a series.
It seems the way to go. Hey, it's like there's a conflict of interest, definitely, isn't it? I'm going to make a book so I can turn it into a series. No, I've been fortunate enough to. I had an idea for this book about a young boy who. It's based in 1991, just before the collapse of the fishery. About a boy who's 12 years old, whose father unfortunately dies in a fishing accident. Unfortunately, a too familiar story for us in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yes.
So he's struggling with that at a time. It's in a small community on an island set off of Newfoundland. He's struggling with that, and at a time when one of his closest friends disappears, just as a stranger arrives to the community. So. It's sort of a bit of a mystery. It has a little bit of everything. It's sort of a Stranger Things based in Newfoundland. Very excited about it. And I pitched it to Simon & Schuster, just the idea of it, and they really liked it. And so they were going to make a book. And so I'm well into it. I sort of put it on hold to work with Mark on this project, but I'm getting back to it as soon as I can. But and we're hoping to have it published in 2023.
That's very exciting. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Now, I think a lot of people might be surprised to learn that you're also a songwriter.
Just will keep going.
How did that happen?
Well, that was a wonderful. It's been a wonderful transition over. I've always loved music, and I loved storytelling. It's always been my love. But I've been working with my partner Maureen Ennis, just a wonderful talent. I think one of the greatest songwriters the province has ever produced. She's a wonderful musician, singer of the Ennis sisters, of course. So we naturally, being together, we'd stumbled upon the fact that maybe I can, help you, or maybe we can work on something together. So she's such a remarkable talent, and has such a different part of the brain than writing a script or a book or anything else. You have 3 minutes to tell a story. So she and I have been working on some things that have already been done. A Keeping Time album, she and I wrote the song Keeping Time, which was a wedding song for Karen Ennis and Shane Croft, her sister and brother-in-law, for their wedding. It was for the father dance, because it's such a special song about nostalgia, about the old waltzes that used to be. And since then, we've written other songs. We wrote one for Lady Cove. Kelly Walsh, wonderful Kelly Walsh, a song called Dream On, which deals with sort of depression and it's okay not to be okay, sort of the theme of that one. And for the Canadian Mental Health Association, we wrote a song called Shine Your Light, again with a theme of, if you're feeling down, please have empathy towards others and yourself. So, and we just wrote a number of songs for her. They're going to have I think there's a new album coming out in the new year. So we just wrote a number of songs for that. And including one with Alan Doyle. Alan and I grew up together. So we finally had an opportunity to write a song together, and we wrote a sea shanty with Maureen, which will be on, hopefully, their new album.
An embarrassment of riches. Perry, it's been lovely chatting with you again, and all the best with Son of a Critch and the novel and everything else.
Oh, thank you so much, Karl. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you. And that's it for this edition of Karl Wells' Point to Point. We'll see you again next time.